Now to lift off with the lever here in my left hand, the collective, I'm just going to begin to raise this up, and all we're doing is increasing the pitch or the angle of both main rotor blades. So we're going to start to feel lighter on our skids, and then once we've generated enough lift to take off, with the stick in my right hand, the cyclic, I'm just going to begin to find a neutral position. This just controls the tilt of the rotor disc. So we're just going to vector that thrust straight down while we travel straight up. We're going to go up here vertically until we get up above our building, more importantly above the power lines over there. Now we'll just tilt the rotor disc forward, take all that vertical lift, turn it into forward flight, and off we go. We're flying.
Hell yeah.
Isn't that a great feeling?
Yeah.
Great feeling.
It's just so much easier than an airplane takeoff because we can just kind of float away.
Yeah.
All right, now we're just going to climb up to between 300 and 500 feet over the ground till we get out over the gorge. Then we'll be anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 feet over the Arkansas River. Our speed is going to be around 100 miles per hour on average. You can keep track of that speed here in the top left of the GPS. That's set to miles per hour rather than knots. So right now, already 95, 98, there's 100. Just never going to feel like we're moving as fast as that indicates, because the higher above the ground we travel, the further away our points of reference will be, and the slower everything appears to us. Now, being a light aircraft, we're going to feel all of the airflow. So if we feel heavy in our seat, we're getting an updraft. Light in our seat, we're getting a downdraft. And then the occasional little wiggle back and forth is just a crosswind.
That's me moving around on my seat.
Feels very unnatural, but it's completely normal. All right, now we're starting to get up next to the Royal Gorge Road. You can see it goes through an area where we had a fire through here. This burn scar is from June of 2013. It's called the Royal Gorge Fire. So over here, it burned from our right to our left, ending just over this ridgeline, but it all began on the south side of the gorge. We'll see that here in just a little while. Didn't burn the bridge down, but it did cross right next to it because of very gusty winds, just raining down embers from one side to the other. And it took out 48 of 52 of the original park structures. So we're going to have to, we had a big rebuild over there, which ended up being a kind of a nice upgrade. So it was like kind of a blessing in disguise, all said and done.
Over the fire?
What's that?
You get to fly over the fire?
No, they evacuated us out of there because firefighting aircraft come in. So they put up what's called a TFR, or temporary flight restricted zone. So on our way out, we kind of took a picture of like the smoke plume, and then just, you know, the half. Then we went up to Colorado Springs, and we actually ended up doing a lot of the media flights over a fire that was going on up there. It was called the Black Forest Fire. Right. So we took up like live camera crews, things like that, the Post-Gazette in Denver. All right, so now we're heading out over the canyon section of the gorge. Now what makes a canyon and a gorge are just their dimensions. So a canyon is wider than it is deep, and a gorge is deeper than it is wide. So this is really all canyon until we get to that ridge line. Then it becomes a gorge out to the west. So we kind of have the best of both features. Down there in the bottom of the canyon is the Arkansas River. Right now it's flowing pretty well, around 400 cubic feet per second. We're kind of getting into the high water season. It'll peak at around 3,000 cubic feet per second once we get into like late May, early June, when that snow is melting at a higher rate. And then it goes back down to around 300 CFS when we get into like after July 4th. But it's passable by raft year round. It's a really fun route. So right now, when it's all muddy like that, that's a good sign. That means you have an increased flow coming down through there. Now it's called the Arkansas because it ends down in Arkansas, but it does start here in Colorado, about 90 miles upstream by a little town of Leadville. So the folks in Arkansas just got to it first and named it, and everyone upstream was just kind of stuck with that name. Now down here to our left, another little fire from the summer of 2019. This was caused by a lightning strike. It's the most common start to a fire in this area because this is the high plains desert that meets the alpine. So you have tall dry grass next to dry trees, just a recipe for everything staying pretty flammable. If you look in the background, like every little ridgeline over here has had a little lightning strike fire on it. All right, now as we get turned around, looking out over the Arkansas River Valley, you can see it's really an oasis that drains down across the high desert plains. So that, you know, it's all deserty around there, but right along the river, there's agriculture, cottonwood growth, and that continues down across the desert plains all the way through Kansas. As we get all the way turned around, this is one of my favorite views of the gorge. Just a beautiful layering effect that takes place out here. And really what we're looking at is just a giant crack right in the middle of this rock feature. So it wasn't the river that carved this out. Geologists think that one time this was the ocean floor, then all of this solid rock had a lava flow kind of eating its way up through. And so the hot surface rock coupled with the cold ocean floor caused a stress fracture, like dropping a hot piece of steel into a cold water bucket, it splits open. It's like a big version of that. We can kind of see evidence of that from our bird's eye view because it's almost like two different pieces to a puzzle. Like this triangle ridgeline on the far side of the river matches the triangle ridgeline down below us. That ridge fits in over here, that one behind it, and you'll notice that puzzle piece effect continue all the way up through the gorge. Now what this crack exposed is a lot of beautiful geology. So you see all the striping in the canyon wall, the swirls out there. Those are called striation. So at one point in time, those would have been layers of sediment that eventually were highly compact and hardened into rock under the ground. And the areas that are swirled, those are those areas of sediment that, or those areas of striation that got so hot under geothermal heating, they actually created a marbling effect in the rock. It's a beautiful natural work of art out here. All right, now we're going up over the south rim. You can see the south portion of that 2013 fire. So over here at the wider canyon section, it was a really good fire line, but just west of the ridge where it becomes narrow, that's where that fire was able to cross over from the south to the north. So this one was started by roadside debris, which usually is a cigarette butt or a cigar flicked out of a window, but it was so dry and so windy, it really could have been any little spark from a vehicle. It's still an open investigation that'll most likely never be solved because even the folks that started it probably had no idea they started it, just how those things go. All right, now coming up to the Royal Gorge Bridge and Park. So this is a beautiful bridge. It's in a beautiful location, but we never really had a practical reason for bridging this gap because there really is nothing special on one side or the other to cross to. So the reason for building this out here is because they knew this was going to be the tallest bridge in the world, therefore attracting worldwide attention. It was actually funded by the Santa Fe Railway, the original constructor of the rail down there, as a promotional deal, like a trackside attraction. So they could market, if you come take our rail out west, you get to see the tallest bridge in the world along your way. And eventually it was turned over to the city as a city park. So now Canyon City maintains it. That bridge in 1929 was constructed in only 8 months' time. It was 2 engineers from Dallas, Texas, who got together with our local Department of Corrections. So with the help from prison labor, they were able to build this bridge in just 8 months' time. And after 8 months, we have a bridge that is 955 feet over the Arkansas. That made that the tallest bridge in the world through 2001, tallest suspension bridge through 2003. Now it's down into the top 4 worldwide, so now that list goes China, Russia, China again, and then the Royal Gorge Bridge there at number 4. That's for suspension bridge, height above ground. All right, now as we get all the way turned around, get a good profile view of the park. Over there on the north side, you can also clearly see where that fire crossed over. On the north side in that first crevice, you see the old incline. That was built in 1931. That was an electric tram that used to take you from the surface down to the water level. Unfortunately, the vegetation underneath it caught fire, superheating all the concrete footers. It broke them, melted or warped a lot of the track. It's gonna have to be a complete replacement of around $10 million. So we're gonna have to continue to save revenue for that one. But now a new visitor center, zip line gondola where an old tram used to be, guided rock climbing route, outdoor amphitheater. So they really went from Old West rustic to now more modern action adventure, which ended up being a way bigger attraction for people. So that's why we say it's kind of a blessing in disguise that it all happened when it did. All right, now we're heading back towards the north. You can see all the way up to the south slope of Pikes Peak out there in the background. It's my favorite time of year because everything's turning green, but you still have snow caps up there. So it's almost like shades of the Austrian countryside rather than, you know, the high desert that we normally see the rest of the year. So top of that one's 14,115 feet above sea level. Right now we are just descending through 6,900, so about 500 feet over our helipad. So we're gonna have a gradual descent down over what is the classic zipline course down here, and we'll get set up for our west wind approach. What do you think, guys? Do you like the helicopter?
Dude, badass.
Yeah. Isn't that the best way to sightsee? I wish I could fly it everywhere I go, but it's a little too expensive for that. All right, so now we're just taking a little pitch out of the rotor blades, flaring back a little bit with the rotor disc. We're still going 105 miles an hour. Gonna slow that down a little bit. And we always want to land helicopters into the wind. That gives us our best performance by keeping our recycled airflow behind us rather than being pushed out in front of us. So out here to do that, we have to go over the short power lines, turn before we get to the tall power lines, all stuff you normally wouldn't want to hear about when you're flying in a helicopter, but we're surrounded by them, so we kind of just call them out and then play nice with them. You'll see like hawks and eagles as they're picking up prey out of a field, always do that last little return to target turn. They're doing the same thing, kind of feeling out the wind, getting that direct headwind. Now as we slow down further, we will start to feel just a little vibration through our rotor disc. We're gonna feel that from the rear of the fuselage all the way up towards the front. It's gonna be like a really expensive massage chair for a little while. And coming in for set down. Oh, maybe we're flying too fast. We're gonna get pulled over here. Uh-oh, po-po. No, he's actually the owner, so we probably have a law enforcement mission we're gonna go on here. All right, so
can we ride?
All the way down. No, if we you know, had a more powerful helicopter, we can all go in here.
Oh, they're coming for you, James.
All right, there we are.